My name is Daniele Santucci. I'm an architect and a researcher at TU Munich, and starting from next week, I'll hold a professorship at Dortmund University of Applied Sciences and Arts, and I'm the co-founder of Climate Flux, and I will show some of the work we do within our company. So I'll sharing my screen. Is it working? Great, thanks. So thanks for inviting me to this very interesting discussion. I'd like to share some work we do because pandemics has also thrown in sharp relief the importance of public space and how we deal with public space. And one important thing we realized during these months is that we are facing another big emergency, that is the climate emergency. So we focus on the energy exchange between humans and the environment. And during this, especially during the lockdown, and even also right now, we are experiencing a sort of disembodiment. So the way we communicate and we interact with the environment has drastically changed than we had before. And especially in cities, we experience, in urban space, we experience this energy transfer from people to the environment and the other way around. And this is what we feel and what we define as comfort. But this is also affecting health and well-being for millions of people all over the world. And the climate crisis, here we see the temperature anomaly in 2018, which is increasing, which increased also last year and which is continually increasing, shows that these conditions will change. So we have a big health threat for millions of people. This map indicates the change in annual mean temperature, and we see that many cities in the world will have a temperature change in 2050 of almost 4 degrees in average, which means that we have peaks of over 10 degrees. We all know the concept of urban heat island effect, but besides the urban heat island effect, which is not the only effect of the climate crisis, we know about fires and high tides. And here we see an image of Venice in November 2019, when they experienced the highest acqua alta ever. And what is clear is that public space is highly affected by these phenomena. So what we do, we have 3 choices: mitigation, adaptation, and suffering. And right now we are suffering. So many people are influenced by the consequences of climate in their everyday life, in transportation, in the way to work or wherever. And what we do, we developed, basing on the idea of health as a fundamental right for people, we developed a sensing techniques, a technique that allows to sense the environment and to quantify its effects. Basically, it's a portable weather station, and we call this experiment climate walk. And with these climate walks, we measure the different factors and map them. So we have been doing the climate walks in several places all over the world, and we put into relation the effects of the built environment on human comfort. Why is it important, and why is it related to the topic of renewable energy or energy? First of all, because we want to measure the quality of the built environment in terms of thermal exchange in energy flux, and we map it, and we can, let's say, make graphics and indicate and quantify these effects. And then we involve people, so people express their sensation, the thermal sensation, and we measure their physiology. So by combining this, we try to understand the transition between outdoor spaces and indoor spaces. So these are images of Singapore, of an experiment we have been doing there. Singapore has these very interesting conditions, transitional conditions between the outdoor, which is pretty extreme in terms of climatic conditions, very high humidity, very high solar radiation. And they created these spaces that are public, but they are covered. And somehow breaking this strong dichotomy between indoor and outdoor spaces. So we measured how people react by walking through these covered spaces, conditioned spaces, just ventilated spaces, to understand if we can reduce the cooling load in buildings, and we could rather bring quality into this transitional space, which is something we need to redesign in terms of architecture after our pandemic experience, in terms of density and distancing. And we realized that in terms of feeling and in terms of perceived temperature, we experience very strong shifts. So the need of cooling down the building just to provoke this sort of cold stress or cold experience when we enter a new space is not really fundamental. We could rather go to and think of more of other solutions. This is huge canopy in Napoli that is reducing the perceived temperature by more than 10 K. And by creating these spaces, we could think how to reconfigure public spaces and create more comfortable urban places. And this is what I think is the biggest lesson we have from the pandemics, how important public spaces are and how important the design of these spaces is for our life.